So you have a freelance client on the line. You're having a conversation. The project sounds interesting. It seems like it's gonna be a good one for you as a freelancer, but the problem is the client is not willing to release their estimated or expected budget. No matter how hard you hint and push and prod, they're not gonna float that number. And you don't wanna float the number first, because if it's too low, then you've shortchanged yourself. If it's too high, you're gonna scare them away. What do? Well, in this video, I'm gonna share a few tips on how you can ask the client for their budget so you can feel confident as you bid for the project. Tip number one is a really basic way of thinking. It's an old adage, you've heard it time and time again, and that is that it's not personal, it's just business. And that's the truth of the matter, is it's not personal, it is just business. So you need to get comfortable talking about money and asking the client directly, is there a budget for this project? Now, if the client doesn't have a budget in mind, we might need to move on to tip number two. All right, so the client won't float you a budget. That's fine. They're just gonna make you work a little bit harder for it. Okay, the next thing you need to do is tip number two, ask about any past projects that are similar to this project. Have you done any projects like this in the past? What did you pay for work like this before? What were the results? You wanna try to get a little bit of a guideline of what they have spent and therefore what they might be willing to spend. Keep in mind, you always wanna base this off of what the result was from the previous work. If they paid $10,000 for a website previously and that website is well beneath your abilities, you can do way better on development and design and implementation. Maybe you bring something else to the table. Well, then you know that 10,000 and above is a fair range to maybe start kind of living in. Tip number three is the next step, and that's where you're gonna have to float a range yourself. And I say float a range and not a specific number because you could get locked in to that number. Here's a couple of tips that I have for this floating a range type technique. You yourself need to have a base level for what you expect to get paid for work. So maybe you're a person that says, I only do custom work. That way my projects start at $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, whatever it is for you. You want to have a ground level of what's expected. That way nobody's wasting your time with a $100 website project. Make sure that you are anticipating administrative work, content, meetings, emails. Make sure that you're packing all of that in to your range that you're about to float. And point number three when it comes to floating a range is float a large range and base it off of work that you've done in the past. If they're not comfortable sharing how much they've paid for similar work in the past, you're gonna be the one that needs to be confident and comfortable with sharing the type of work that you've done in the past and how much you've billed for that type of work. So you might wanna say something like this. Similar projects that we've done like this in the past have cost anywhere between $4,000 and $12,000. Pause and read their response, visually or audibly. And then you wanna follow up with this line. Was that what you were expecting for this project? And then you can have a really healthy conversation that's not personal, it's just business about the budget. Tip number four is what I call the contextual car method. You gotta give your clients a little bit of context and use something as a metaphor that everybody understands, generally speaking. And so you wanna float a range using the metaphor of cars to bring some context. So you might be able to say something like this. Websites are kind of like cars. They all serve the same purpose. They're supposed to be doing the same thing, but there's a big difference from riding in that 82 Isuzu Amigo and driving that brand new 2022 Tesla. Are you looking for something like a Tesla to that level of features and luxury all baked in right when you purchase it? Or are you looking for something that's a little bit more on the lower levels that you can kind of add on to and build into in the future? From here, the client should be able to say, oh yeah, I wasn't really thinking a Tesla, and I'm not actually thinking a hoopty from the 80s. I'm kind of thinking like your run-of-the-mill truck. What's that kind of look like? And now we've given some context, we can start discussing what that might look like in our world, in our terms. At this point, the client should have a pretty decent understanding of the expected budget, either their expected budget or your expected budget per the type of work that you do. If they still are not sure, if they're still not ready to talk cash or talk money or talk budget, you're gonna have to be a really good listener, ask some more diagnostic questions, and then maybe circle back around for a follow-up meeting after you've sent them some other materials. Maybe a quick estimate, a ballpark estimate, maybe some older proposals or estimates from other projects that you've done for similar work. You're gonna have to give them some assets and some resources to build that confidence and that trust factor. But you might just need to ask them lots of questions and build the trust right there on the phone or on the call. That's it. Those are a few tips that I have on how to establish a budget with a freelance client. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I make lots of videos about design and development and freelancing just like this one. So make sure you hit that little bell notification icon so you know when another video like this one comes out. If you have any questions, leave those down in the comments and check the description for some helpful links. I hope you have an amazing week. I hope you're designing amazing things, making amazing things, and I hope that you're landing the types of clients and projects that you absolutely love. We'll see you in the next one.